Hello, my name is Michelle Porter. I'm delivering the presentation today called Filling the Gaps Between Community and University, Quantifying Housing and Homelessness in Rural Newfoundland and Labrador. This presentation contextualizes the findings following a community-based collaborative research project designed to quantify housing and homelessness in small town and rural areas of Western Newfoundland and Labrador. The findings presented will focus on three areas. Number one, the role of committed community partners in collecting robust quantitative data in rural areas. Number two, the impact of a COVID-related provincial shutdown on our first homeless count and how this shifted the landscape of homelessness. And number three, the impact of boom-bust economic cycles on affordable housing in the area. When I started this project, I was a postdoctoral fellow at Grenfell campus at Memorial University of Newfoundland. Today, I have just begun a new postdoctoral fellow at the University of Toronto with a focus on Métis studies, and very excited about that. But really, it was a pleasure to work on this project. But let me tell you who the other people are who are actually continuing with the project since I've gone on. There's Dr. Kelly Vauden and Dr. Stephen Decker. So that's who the researchers are. I'll let you know who the partners are as well. Deborah Moynes-Keeshan is the Western Director at Newfoundland and Labrador Housing, and Jade Kearley, Interagency Coordinator, Community Mental Health Initiative. Affordable and safe housing are key components of inclusive rural economies on those areas. More research is needed that describes rural housing and rental markets and rural homelessness, particularly in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. This kind of research is fundamental to the development of programs and services aimed at providing houses for those most at risk in communities. And because it was community driven, the findings are expected to meet community goals by supporting community groups, evidence-informed decision-making, by strengthening partnerships and providing evidence for policy changes and identifying potential housing projects and initiatives. Before I tell you a little bit more about how this project came about, I just want you to get an understanding of the scope of the project. There was the background research, landlords and tenants, housing, and homelessness. What is, at a specific point in time, what is the actual homelessness being experienced? Really important to this was the community collaboration. It couldn't have worked without, it wouldn't have even started without our community partners. The Community Mental Health Initiative and Newfoundland and Labrador Housing, Jade and Deborah, they approached researchers at Grenfell campus to lead this study. Now, the interest in this research was very practical. At the beginning, after failing to secure funding for rural and local programs designed to alleviate housing insecurity and homelessness, the potential funders said they needed to see quantitative data to support their anecdotal data about how homelessness was impacting the area and the subsequent need for programs and services. So the level of underhousing or hidden homelessness has not yet been factored into the understanding of and response to homelessness in this region. Additional information emerging from this research will include a more concrete idea of who our homeless are, and if there are key vulnerable populations, such as Indigenous, perhaps seniors or youth, and whether those seeking housing are local or if they're from surrounding smaller areas or smaller communities. Current data on the vacancy and or rental rates through the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation has significant gaps, as it does not include information such as boarding houses whether or not utilities are included in rental rates, or if units are accessible or visitable. As well, most data available does not provide information about Corner Brook, Deer Lake, and the Bay of Islands area specifically, focus mostly on St. John's, and don't get into the specifics of surrounding areas or communities. The information collected during the service-based count will be crucial to our understanding, and that is fundamental to the development of programs and services aimed at providing housing for those most at risk in our communities. Because this had such deep roots in community collaboration and the outcome so focused on community outputs, this allowed us to build trust in the community that this research is very important and would benefit from cooperation. And of course, because of that, because you had more of the community on board, it will result in the data that we've collected is much more robust. Now, of course, COVID happened during this research. So, what happens when you count homelessness during a COVID-related provincial shutdown? We asked ourselves, should we put off this research? But, our community partners needed foundational data to support funding applications. And we decided that we could contextualize that data with additional follow-up interviews. So we went ahead. In both our homeless count and our follow-up interviews with partners, we found we didn't see a large increase in homelessness at that point or immediately as COVID was happening. But there were strong indications that there will be more people at risk in the near future due to job losses, difficult to navigate supports, and supports not tailored to rural areas. In fact, it had been predicted, the one quote, take our homeless number now and triple it, and that's the amount that could be homeless at any moment. The risks have gone up. If we put prevention measures in place now, our partners told us we can prevent an increase in future homelessness. Before they were standing on a ledge, now they're on a wire. We wanted to understand the way the rental market is or isn't working for landlords, for tenants, and for the homeless. The problem is that outside of the main urban areas, there isn't a lot of data. So this collaborative project has been the ideal way to get the information our partners need. Another aspect that came up was that shifting contexts of social affordable housing in rural areas are impacted by boom-bust cycles. More research is needed to fully understand the role of social housing in these economic cycles, and future research must be, like this research, community-led and community-driven. This research could not have been done and would not have any future or local relevance without our community partners. Housing and home are directly implicated in today's shifting patterns of work and mobility and rural and urban divides, particularly in resource-driven regions in Canada. There's a small but growing body of research examining the struggle to find adequate housing among mid to low income earners in the middle of an economic boom. While there's been important research into the negative impacts of on housing affordability in so-called boom towns or host communities, there is little focused consideration given to the relational entanglements between social housing, rural areas, and economic boom in Canada or in Newfoundland and Labrador. A study of rural and remote communities in Newfoundland and Labrador showed that social housing played a key role in making possible the movements of people related to ERGM, employment-related geographic mobility. Those social housing, and those results haven't been published yet, though social housing absorbs the community and social impacts of economic boom-bust cycles as they relate to housing availability and affordability. There have been few supports offered to social housing, though impact benefits or through impact benefits or government investment, for example. By identifying and understanding the role of social housing in making boom-bust cycles and the associated employment-related mobility possible, we can discuss how to build stronger social housing networks in rural and remote communities and urban communities where and when mobile work occurs. So, in conclusion, housing is a site that mediates between the systematic and the particular with regard to the impacts of economic shifts and mobility. By focusing our attention on the materiality of relational entanglements, we shift emphasis away from the broader economic analysis. By doing this, we shift the emphasis to the particular personal narratives told during the interviews about social housing, enforcement, mobility, and the importance of the role of social housing in this relational, and as the importance of the role of social housing in this relational entanglement are made visible. In these communities in Newfoundland and Labrador, social housing makes possible the movement of workers to and from communities as required to meet industry needs. And the broad scope of this particular community-based project is a foundational, a beginning, a start in terms of the kind of research that needs to happen in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. The research, as I said, is not finished yet. It is ongoing, and you will see more results from Dr. Kelly Vaughn, Dr. Stephen Decker, and the partners, as well as some of the students involved and postdoctoral fellows involved in the project. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions. Thank you.